Good afternoon, good evening, rather, folks. I was reading a story about how Chicago is on target of having the highest murder rate in decades, um, and that pastors are calling for a day, one day, for blacks to stop killing one another. We saw what happened in Baltimore and how they had the highest murder rate in 40 years in the city of Baltimore. Um, I've said that white cops, I mean, I don't know why any white guy in his right mind would want to be a police officer today in this climate. And this is exactly what's going on in Chicago, Illinois. And I've said this before. I've said that, and I've said this before. People know I've said it before, who watch me or listen to me quite often on a regular. I've said that uh, white guys, white perps, probably have it worse now because there's essentially no protections. The same way there's no protections for white males to cry discrimination is precisely the same tactic being pulled on the streets. Um, White guys essentially have no safety net. All right. Um, Whereas minorities, most notably blacks, have a huge safety net now. And this is what you see going. I called this during the Michael Brown with Officer Darren Wilson. And each time we see the decapitation, figuratively speaking, of white officers trying to do their job, being put in situations that aren't in a training manual. A 6'4", 230 plus pound dude reaching inside your squad car for your service pistol is probably not something you're going to find in a academy training manual or a training module or anything like that. Yet it happens. It's when you're dealing with the African American criminal element in any said city across this country. And it's abnormal behavior. I've talked about extensively about abnormal, degenerative black culture that goes on in so-called black communities. I've kind of wavered off of it, but stories like this really bring me back to my center and what I've been known for discussing. That, many of these cops, these officers, there's an off and on switch. You can even hear, I remember watching episodes of Cops in the early 90s, mid 90s, and cops saying, when we come in certain areas, it's like a switch. You got to be on. You can be off guard in Beverly Hills, but once you step into Watts, once you step on, once you step in Watts or South Los Angeles, that switch, you can't be slacking. You can't be slipping. Once you come down that 110 freeway, it's on and cracking. Because, a lot of these places are known for abnormal. I mean, nobody's used to these cops. They're not used to that. That type of abnormal, dysfunctional behavior that is exhibited by many black folks in these ghettos. That stuff is normal. That shit Sandra Bland pulled, that she can get away with that in the hood. She may get knocked upside her head, but that's the everyday way in which black folks communicate and deal with authority. But see, when they run up on white people or people who are not used to that disrespect, that's what happens. All that talking tough, talking back, I ain't gonna do this, that shit works in East Baltimore. because that's how Negroes communicate. But that doesn't fly when you run up on a cop, a white cop, where, you know, he's not around people that deal with that react that way. It's a shock for him. Now, some of you all are saying, well, nobody told him to be a police. You're right. And that's part of, you know, that's part of the requirements when donning that uniform, is you're going to deal with people who aren't like you or who don't. But, you know, it's really a highlight on your behavior, because you're the ones being shot down because of your inability to be respected, to show respect, and to deal with the consequences of your actions. And then you want to jump up and get bad and talk and reach for cops' guns and run and wonder why you're shot down. You know, you look at Chicago. Like I said, this is the focal point of this video. Chicago needs white cops for the most part. And I've said this before. A lot of white cops are saying, why? I'm not going to be splattered on USA Today. You're not going to put my face on Time magazine as some racist white cop who just shoots black people indiscriminately. So a lot of these white cops are saying, well, I'm not going to do anything. And see, black people are stuck. Black folks in Chicago and many of these inner cities where black men and women are shot down every day in broad daylight like dogs by other black people. They are, it's more damned if you do, damned if you don't. You can't sit here and bitch and whine about cops arresting people that kill you, and then when the cops bring the pain, when the cops bring the pain down on their ass, you want to whine and say police brutality. You can't have this 19-year-old punk out here selling H like Freddie Gray did to his own people, and then get pissed and talk about rights and he's got this, and when the cops come down and do what they do to his ass. I think certain elements need to be dealt with accordingly. When you're selling narcotics to people, and I only say your own people because this is how black folks connect. Black folks have a very tribalistic mentality. So when I say Freddie Gray sells dope to his own people, Freddie Gray shouldn't be selling dope. Well, he shouldn't have been selling dope to anybody. But to connect with you tribalistic primitive coons and shines, I gotta say that. So you know, you got dudes, you 14, 13, you're out here, got bodies under their belt. And then when the cops come and try to eradicate the nuisance, oh, that's police, Black Lives Matter, hands up. Michael Brown was a nuisance. I don't care, and his family may have loved him, but he was a nuisance. Freddie Gray was a nuisance. His family probably loved him, but he was a nuisance. He was a dredge on society in all shape. And that's, some of y'all, man, you talking ill about the dead. But you know what? They did things that brought upon their untimely death. When you fuck with the bull, you gonna get the horns. It's plain and simple. And they fuck with the bull one too many times. That's just how it is, Jack. So you can't sit back and get mad and say these police ain't doing their job, but then when they do their job, you want to cry racism and they trying to extinct genocide on the black people. When the main culprits that's terrorizing black people, you want to know who's terrorizing black people in West Chicago? Black people. You want to know who's terrorizing people in the West End of Birmingham, Alabama? Black people. Ain't no white folks coming down there and killing blacks. Why you think they move away from your ass? White people aren't the problem. So if you think white cops are the problem, and if white cops said, well, shit, if I even do something, I'm going to be on the cover of Times Magazine, so therefore I ain't going to do shit. And I think a lot of these cops would say, well, long as y'all keep that shit there and don't let it spill out across Broadway, we're good. See, you can't be that way. You can't be that. You can't be that way, man. You can't sit up here and say, man, they come up here and jack us up. And then when you don't see no cops around and they robbing your ass, when other black people are robbing and killing you, the first thing you looking for is Officer McMalley, Officer Waddy McMalley. But Officer Waddy McMalley is saying, screw you niggers, because every time I come down and try to do my job, you want to have your cameras out, you want to run to the ACLU, you want to run to Obama, you want to go get the feds and saying we're too tough, we're using too much excessive force. So Officer Waddy McMalley says, fuck them. I'm not dealing with that shit. And that's exactly what happened in Chicago. And that's exactly what these goons and minstrels and freaking nuisances know. Since there's no real strong patriarchal system in the so-called black community, these young thugs aren't listening to these zoot suit Steve Harvey talking fake black Dr. Phil types. They ain't listening to these Negroes. They're not listening to you slick-haired, freaking zoot suit, Bible-toting shines anymore. And in a way, they shouldn't, because you guys dropped the ball. You old pastors, you old turn the other cheek, love your enemy Negroes, drop the ball. All you Christian hog-mog, let's roll out the red carpet for Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders Negroes. You guys dropped the ball. And in a way, I can see why these young thug killers running around toting guns, shooting each other at broad daylight, don't listen to you. Now, I don't sympathize with them, but I can see why your message doesn't appeal, because it's a weak message. It has always been a weak message of turning the other cheek. White people, and you wonder why, see, a lot of you Christian Negroes, you wonder why, well, if we're Christian and the white man's Christian, why is he kicking our ass? You see, because white people are realists. White people don't follow that turn the other cheek bullshit, even though they're Christians. White people don't play that love thy enemy bullshit, whack, weak, don't make sense bullshit. Who the fuck loves their enemy? That doesn't matter, but see, since you Negroes are so literal in everything that you do, you can't grasp that. You can't understand that. You can't understand that this God helps those that helps themselves. But you Negroes think you can just do no work, don't do anything, no accountability, no action. You think you just drop to your fucking knees and ask for help instead of doing the shit on your own. And these young kids are not trying to hear that shit for the most part. And you failed them. I've talked about Negro baby boomers that have adopted certain policies, that have black women that have jumped on the feminist train when black men weren't the enemy. White feminists put in the heads of black women that black men, because white women were fighting a gender war where there was no gender war amongst black men and black women, but you adopted that. and now you're the fucking ring. You're the guide on bearer of the feminist movement. You look at Black Lives Matter, a bunch of dyke females, college educated dyke females, running around with majors in African studies, Kemetic studies, or whatever the fuck they learn, and can't get a job. So let me start a movement that absolutely means fucking nothing, like Black Lives Matter, and be seen. That is what's going on. That is, in fact, what's happening. So because there's no patriarchal, because this shit doesn't happen in Italian neighborhoods. I've talked about Salvatore and the boy. I've given descriptions. I've said how Sal and a young Carlo would never get away with the shit that Kadavion gets away with in the so-called black community, because there's a strong patriarchal system in the Italian community. Notice I didn't say so-called. Where Sal, if Carlo is breaking into Miss Diodato's home, all Miss Diodato's got to do is send somebody. Sal and the boys just have to get wind of it, and Carlo is going to be dealt with accordingly. There's no shame. There's no repercussions in the so-called black community. Tyrone and Skillet can break in Miss Green, Miss Jackson, Miss Barnes' homes all day long. Maybe hit them about 3 or 4 times a month. Ain't no repercussions. Ain't nobody gonna do shit. But you try that in a Jewish or Italian or an Arab neighborhood and see where your ass gets. And if you black, you try that shit in an Arab, Italian, or Jewish neighborhood and see what the hell happens to you. This is why people go in the so-called black community and treat you like shit. This is why they sell you inferior goods, because they don't give a damn about you, because they know that that very system that perpetuates them doesn't exist in black folks. This is why they treat you the way that they do. They talk to you the way that they do. They sell inferior goods to you anytime they want to. They see how your women treat you, how loose and uncouth and loudmouth black women are. So why should they respect you? When you're 29 years old and you can't even fucking wear your pants properly, and you have tattoos scribbled all over your face and your arms, no cop. Why should a white cop respect you? I don't even respect you. And you're running around here at 2:00 in the afternoon on a Tuesday while everybody's at fucking work with your pants below your ass and fresh Jordans and all this bullshit, tattoos, gold, dreadlocks, looking suspicious as hell. Why the fuck would you expect to get respected? I don't understand that. And some of you shines are saying, well, if I put on a suit, I'm still black. You can try that old sorry excuse bullshit somewhere else. I bet you will get more. I bet you cops will ease off your ass more than the former example I gave. So it is what it is. I don't blame these cops for. It's really your fault. You bitch and whine when they do their jobs. Now you want to whine and bitch when they're not around, when you're being chased down by a shine and he's dumping at your ass and you're running, trying to get away. And the first face you hope you see is Officer Waddy McNulty. But he's not around because you drove his ass out. Because a week ago, you was calling him a pig and death to pigs. Now, you got to shine and your eyes is wide open hoping you don't slip. because you got this Negro dumping at you and busting at your ass while you're trying to get away. And now you're hoping you see that white cop that you was calling last week a freaking pig. You're hoping and praying you run into a cop. So, miss me with that bullshit. All the theatrics. Black people, and as cliche as this may sound, black people's biggest problem is other black people. It's simple as that. It's simple as that. Chicago, South Chicago, West Side Chicago, where black people are heavily mixed, is a shithole. It's a shithole. And everybody knows it. And it's a shame that you have to have other people. Black folks, if you're so fucking literal about the Bible, doesn't it say thou shalt not kill? This is why the black church is a joke. More church, and this is, I've talked about black folks and religion. You could try to find the video. I know I did it. How are you going to have churches on every block? And when I say, people think I exaggerate when I talk about this. There are churches damn near on every block in the so-called black community in any said big city in America. But yet you have the highest homicide rates in that part of the city. So it's obvious that religion in church does nothing for you, Negro. It's just an old relic that Negroes have been conditioned to go to since the dawn of time. The black church is nothing. It's just form and function. I know I'm supposed to get up and go sing these hymns, and then when I get out, I'll go home. No, it's like this. I'll whore, sell dope, kill other black people on Friday and Saturday, get up, go to church on Sunday, throw shade and look at other black folks with envy and jealousy, and sing hymns and eat hog mugs and chicken and bake macaroni and cheese and all this shit. And then Monday through Friday, I'm going to be the biggest devil and deviant and repeat the shit all over again. That's pretty much how black folks do in terms of how they treat religion in church. Because since there's no more shame in the so-called black community, in which I said a 23-year-old female can have 6 kids and waltz her ass up in church, tattoos and all. No dad, probably the fathers of the kids are dead or in jail. And there's no recourse. There's no shame. Back in the days, older black women would have shamed her ass. But now it's so accepted. You got these single mothers out here. And many of y'all have told the story of how one of my cousins is one of the very females I describe all too often in my videos concerning single black mothers. And how my uncle said, baby shower. Baby showers is for married females. He said, because he heard, he was sitting in the living room and he's telling me and my daddy this story. And all he heard was baby shower. And he said, shit, baby shower for what? Baby showers are for married people. Because my cousin, of course, like I said, part of the problem. He said, this ain't nothing to celebrate. You bringing another kid in here and these no good Negroes ain't nowhere to be found or can't do shit for you. This ain't nothing to celebrate. And me and my daddy, we used to we just shake our head and said, damn. But he was right. My uncle was right. You females, you young single out of here having baby showers and celebrating another potential Freddie Gray or a Michael Brown to come into this world and fuck shit up for you. That ain't nothing to celebrate. So, these pastors want to, it's sad that you got to beg people not to kill each other. You would think all these churches would be, you think these shines would have gotten that message, all these churches and shit, all these hymn books and Bibles floating around the so-called black community. I mean, it is what it is. Peace.